guys, welcome back to my channel and my first ever Q&A video. I put out a request for questions on Instagram and I got loads of questions back, and I did already have some questions which people have asked on my channel. So if I don't get round to your question in this video, I am going to do another Q&A because I had enough questions that I'm going to have to split it into 2 videos. So don't worry, I will get round to your question even if it's not answered in this one. So the first question was, which countries would you recommend visiting for the Food and Wine Festival? Now, with the Food and Wine Festival, I don't eat a lot of meat, so I tend not to eat loads at the festival. I do more drinking, which is fine by me. But one of the main ones that I love is China. That's always really, really good for food and drink. They have a drink called Kung Fu Punch, which is my absolute favourite, and they usually have a plum wine cooler, which is also amazing. And I'm trying to think of some of the ones that Ian really enjoyed because he obviously likes the food there. So he always likes the Hawaii booth because they have a pulled pork slider, which he really enjoyed. And New Zealand, there is a pork chop. I think it was a pork chop. Yeah. No, a lamb chop. A lamb chop in New Zealand, which he really enjoyed that as well. And also over in Canada, they have the filet with the truffle butter sauce, which was another thing that he really loved. So those would probably be the ones that I'd recommend the most for things that we enjoyed. But definitely if you can schedule set time to go to the Food and Wine Festival and put some budget aside for it, it's well worth it. It's one of the best times of year to go. It's really, really good fun. I would always recommend going earlier in the day when they've just opened the booths because it tends to be less crowded. Try and avoid the weekends and Friday nights because it's very, very popular with locals and those times can be very, very busy. So if you can, go during the week is another tip. So next question, when you book off-site hotels, do you book and pay online or do I phone up? So whenever I book off-site hotels, I always book through Travel Republic. I've always found them to be the best. I've never had any problems with the booking. Everything's always run smoothly. They always seem to be the best price. They do sell on-site hotels as well as off-site and also universal hotels. So it gives you a good idea of how much everything is, so you can compare the two, and universal obviously. And the only thing I would say to watch out for, and this is nothing to do with Travel Republic, a lot of the off-site hotels now charge a resort fee, and it's not always 100% clear when you're looking at the price. So whatever price they're giving you, there is going to be another fee on top of that when you arrive at the hotel that you're going to need to pay usually at the end when you check out. So for example, we stayed at Best Western Lake Buena Vista when I went with my friend Kate, and I think the resort fee was like $15 or $18 a night or something like that, so we had to pay that as well. So just make sure you read all the small print, and wherever you're booking it will be the same. It's to do with the hotel itself and not to do with the person you're booking through or the site that you're booking through. So always make sure when you're booking off-site hotels you watch out for that, because you know, you think you're booking at this price and then you are going to have to pay more, and it's per night. So if you're going for like a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, that can soon mount up. So just make sure you're definitely checking if there's a resort fee. We tend to stay at the Clarion Inn in Lake Buena Vista if we stay off-site because there's no resort fees and no parking fees. A lot of the hotels also charge per night for parking. So that would be my recommendation if you're looking for a budget off-site hotel. The Clarion Inn, it's basic, it's not, you know, anything exciting, but it's perfectly adequate, and it's close to Disney. So that would be my recommendation for booking off-site hotels. So this next question is by far my most asked question. How do you afford to go to Disney as often as you do? So I'm going to address this because everybody asks me all the time. I get questions like, are you a secret millionaire? What is going on? Obviously traveling to Florida from the UK is not cheap. The airfare is definitely one of the big expenses. So one of the reasons I can go so often is just that I invest a lot of time in looking for cheap deals. I am constantly looking, even if I'm not looking to book, I am looking at flight prices, because a lot of the trips I've taken, especially the last 2 trips this year, were only because I saw a very, very cheap flight that came up. So I just keep looking all the time. And the same goes for hotels. Sometimes I can book a cheap package deal with the flight and hotel together. So that's the number one thing, is just investing a lot of time in looking for cheap deals. The second thing, which is a big factor, is that I have an annual pass for Disney. So I don't have to pay for park tickets every time I go. And if you're traveling from the UK, you'll know that the kind of standard 7-day or 2-week ticket, I think these days they give you 14 days for the price of 7 or something, but you know, I think for next year it's getting on for £400. So if I had to pay that every time, it would be a totally different story about how often I would be able to go. So having the annual pass definitely means that I can take multiple trips, whereas normally I would maybe only be able to take one. So that's the second thing. And the next thing is a fairly basic thing, but I save really, really hard for these trips. And I mean that when I say it. I am really quite frugal in how I spend day to day. I don't buy loads of clothes. I work from home, so I don't buy lunch every day. I don't buy coffee like I used to when I worked full time every day. All of these little expenses that add up to a lot across the month. I colour my own hair. My mum cuts my hair. I do my own nails. I really, really keep my spending to a minimum so that I can afford these trips. And I don't go out drinking, neither Ian and I smoke. I don't do a whole lot in terms of activities that cost a lot of money. So throughout the summer, for example, you might go to festivals or concerts or weekends away. I don't really do any of that, and we don't do any other travel of any significant travel other than our Disney trips. So it really is a case of just keeping costs down a lot and saving really, really hard. And a lot of people say to me, you know, oh, do you really want to do all of that just so you can go to Florida? I don't feel like all of those things are like a huge sacrifice. I don't mind doing my own hair. I don't mind not buying tons of clothes. Buying loads of clothes doesn't really interest me. So I don't feel deprived, like I'm spending all of my money going to Florida, but I do have to save very, very hard if I want to go as often as I do. So it's really just those few things. You know, we're not secret millionaires or anything like that. It really is just those things that allow me to go so often. But I am so, so grateful for how often I get to go. Okay, next question is, what is my favorite table service restaurant? This is so hard because there are so many that I love. Oh, which is my favorite? Can I have two? I'm gonna have two because one's a signature and one isn't. So that kind of counts, right? So my favorite non-signature restaurant is Ohana, I would say. This time when I went, you'll see when I put up the vlogs, it is getting a little expensive in my opinion for what it is. Only because every time I go, it's more expensive. It's very popular, it's really hard to get a reservation, so I get why Disney are putting the price up because they can. But there will come a point where I may not go as often as I usually do if it's gonna keep getting more expensive. But it's such a fun restaurant, it's really, really good, and definitely it's a favorite of mine. And my other favorite, which is a signature restaurant, is California Grill. We absolutely love that place. Ian and I first went there on our very first trip together, which was 2011. And we went there on our honeymoon. We went there for Ian's 30th birthday. It's just a really special restaurant. It's always our go-to if we're celebrating anything. The food is always amazing. We've never had a bad experience. Never had a bad experience with service or anything. Maybe we've just been lucky, but we love, love, love California Grill. Obviously you've got the viewing of the fireworks and everything as well. So yeah, definitely love a California Grill. So this was an interesting question. If you could create your perfect park with 10 to 15 attractions, what would they be? So I've had to write this down because I had to think about it. And I've included some things that aren't attractions as such, but this is just all the things that I would want to have in my perfect park in one place. So Haunted Mansion, Pirates, Big Thunder Mountain, Soarin', Toy Story, Kilimanjaro Safari. So those are my attractions that I would want in there. I would also want to have the whole of the World Showcase as part of my perfect park. I would have Rivers of Light as my nighttime show. I would also have Pandora, the new section in Animal Kingdom. And I would also have to have Aloha Isle, which is where you get your Dole Whips from. So all of those things collectively would be my perfect park. Okay, next question. Would you work at Disney World or move to Orlando? So would I move to Orlando? 100% definitely yes. if I could, I would. And a lot of people say, oh, you know, it wouldn't be the same as being on vacation, and you know, people move out there and think it's going to be like being on holiday. I've been going there now for 15 years. Ian travels a lot to the States with work. I've been, like I say, going almost every year for 15 years, and I think that's a long enough time to get a good idea of the differences between living and working there. I'm fully aware it would be nothing like being on vacation if you lived there, but even so, I would absolutely love to live there if it was possible. Unfortunately, if you live in the UK, it's not very easy, and that is putting it mildly, unless you have a lot of money, and I mean a lot of money, to invest in a business in the US, or if you marry a US citizen, which obviously we're already married, so that's not possible. There are very few ways for you to move out there. So as it stands at the moment, it's not something that we can do, but I would love to do it. As for whether I would work at Disney World, my instinct is no, I wouldn't, because I feel like it would take away from the magic. Now, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't work for the Disney company. If I could work in a role that was, say, in an office and not actually working in the theme parks or in one of the resorts, then yes, I probably would, because I think they're a great company. I think there must be so many really interesting, fascinating roles that you can do within the company, but I wouldn't work in the parks or the resorts. So next up, what are your top 5 rides at Walt Disney World? This was also really difficult because there's so many that I like, and I wish I could have had a top 10, but I'm gonna try and narrow it down to 5. So Haunted Mansion is straight up my favorite out of every park. Love, love, love Haunted Mansion. Second is Spaceship Earth, and that might be surprising to some people because it's by no means a thrill ride, but Spaceship Earth is one of those attractions that when I am on it, it makes me really feel like I'm at Disney, if that makes sense. It's just a really familiar ride. I love to do it, and it just, yeah, it really makes me feel like I'm there. The next one is probably a little bit weird to most people, but it's Grand Fiesta Tour, which is the Mexico Donald Duck boat ride at Epcot in the Mexico Pavilion. It's one of those attractions, it's really hard to explain why I love it so much, but Epcot is my favorite park. Mexico Pavilion is my favorite World Showcase Pavilion, and I just really, really love boat rides. Like a lot of the attractions that I like, Pirates, the Little Mermaid ride at Magic Kingdom. I just really enjoy those kind of slow moving, dark boat rides. So that's why that's one of my favorites. I just absolutely love it. Next up is Soarin'. I absolutely love Soarin', and especially now they've changed it to Soarin' Around the World. I just think it's absolutely amazing. The only thing I will say about it, it's one of those rides where the place that you're sat on the ride can make a huge difference to how good it is. If you can be in the front row and front and center, it's a totally different experience than if you're like third row off to the back. So if you do get to go to Walt Disney World, just ask the cast member, can I wait for the front row, because it makes a huge difference. But yeah, love that ride. And my final favorite would have to be Toy Story Mania. Ian and I love that ride. It's so fun. We love to like compete, and yeah, it's just definitely up there with one of my favorites. So next question is, when is the best time to visit Disney World? This is another tricky one to answer because it depends on the individual, but for me, my priority is to go when it's not too busy. I hate going at the most crowded times of year. The most crowded times are Easter, Christmas, and summer, so like July and August. And another couple of things that have started to make the parks really, really busy are if you go when there's immediately during, before or after a Run Disney event. So Disney have these marathon weekends. If you go right around that, it will be really crowded, so that's another thing to avoid. But generally for me, the best time of year is September. September is very quiet, the schools have all gone back, it's still very, very warm. If anything, it's quite hot, so if you don't like it when it's too hot, then September might still be a bit hot for you. But September, May, when I've just been, was great. The crowd levels were quite low, the weather, it was very hot still, but I think it was unseasonably hot, so normally it wouldn't be quite as hot as that, but I really enjoyed May. And I do also really like November. My first 4 trips to Florida were all right at the beginning of November, I think around the 5th. And that was absolutely great. The weather was lovely, but not too hot. However, I think they now have a Run Disney event at the beginning of November, so I probably would avoid that now. This next trip I'm taking is at the end of November, so that'll be interesting to see what that's like. But yeah, I would say September, November and May, and all of those times, in September you would need to go middle to end, then you would catch the Food and Wine Festival. If you go beginning of November, I think you still get a bit of the Food and Wine Festival, and May you would get the Flower and Garden Festival at Epcot. So yeah, I would say all of those are good times to go. One thing to say, if you live in the UK and you're restricted to school holidays, which I know a lot of people are, I would go at the end of August. It does mean you have to wait your whole summer break to go on your trip, and I know that obviously you're probably desperate to go, but the US schools will have gone back by then, but the UK schools haven't. So if you go like the last 2 weeks of August, you're gonna miss a lot of crowds, which is a good thing. If you go kind of July or beginning of August, it's still gonna be very crowded. So that's just a little tip there as well. Next question was, is there a resort you haven't stayed at that you would love to stay at? Yes, there are a couple, and the instant one that comes to mind, I absolutely would love to stay in the Contemporary Resort in one of the tower rooms with a theme park view. It's very expensive. I have stayed at Bay Lake Tower, but I really would love to stay actually at the Contemporary. I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon because it is so pricey, but that's one thing. And the other one that springs to mind is the Polynesian. I really, really would love to stay there sometime. Again, it's very expensive, but maybe on a trip I could stay there for maybe 1 night or 2 nights or something. But yeah, those two I would say are my top ones that I still want to stay at. So next up, what made you start vlogging and how do you find the time to edit videos? So the reason I started vlogging was just that I wanted to have a memory of the trip. It occurred to me that my trips from 2002, 2004, obviously I have some memories of them, but I definitely can't remember what we did each day, restaurants we went to, you know, details like that. And that's kind of why I called my channel Disney in Detail in a way. But yeah, I really wanted to be able to look back on these trips, and it's so great. Like when I look back on my first trip that I vlogged, which was April 2016 with my friend Kate, it's so good to be able to just see what we did every day and really relive it. So that was the reason I started. In terms of having time to edit, I can definitely relate to that because up until recently, I was working full time and doing my videos, and it is difficult to find time. I generally would do a little bit every evening, and then at the weekends I would try and do a bit more, but I know what it's like. Sometimes you have plans all weekend and it can be difficult to get them done. What I always would try to do is be ahead of myself. So if I wanted to upload every week, I would try and make sure that I had several weeks already done. So even if that meant delaying a few weeks before you started uploading, I think it's best to have a few already there so that you're not under time pressure every week to get a vlog done to upload that weekend. So that's one tip, is just try and be ahead of yourself wherever you can. More recently, I work from home, so I'm very fortunate that I have more time available to edit them, and I've really tried to up my game with editing because I've got the time to do it and make the videos as good as possible. So final question for this Q&A, because I don't want this to be way too long. What is the most special souvenir or just your favorite souvenir that you've ever bought from Disney? And this was a tough one because I've been trying to remember, I've been going for quite a long time, some of the older things that I bought, but I don't think I remember buying a ton of like special souvenirs. I used to buy like mugs and all the like keychains and the standard kind of things that you buy on your first trip. But probably one of the most special ones I have is this Pandora ring. So yeah, I bought this ring from the store that they have on Main Street in the Magic Kingdom, and I only bought it in April last year, but I wear it every single day, and that's what I like, is having souvenirs that I can use every day. And this I never ever take it off. I have it on all the time, and it's just a reminder of the Magic Kingdom and Main Street. So I really, really love that. And also, this is a bit of an odd one, but I really, really love my Haunted Mansion coaster set. This is just one of them that I have here. And these came as a set of 6, I think, and they're mostly the gravestones that you see in the graveyard as you're waiting to go in. So there's a Madame Leota one, but I just really love these. We use them every single day, and yeah, again, it's just a nice reminder of my favourite attraction. So that's all the questions for this Q&A. Like I said, if I didn't answer your question, don't worry, I am going to do another one. I just had so many that I didn't want the videos to be too long. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any other questions, like I said, I will be doing another Q&A, so put the questions in the comments below and I will answer them in the next one. If you're new to my channel, I also do vlogs of all my trips and lots of other Disney videos, so hit the subscribe button, and the little bell button next to it is the one that you click to make sure you get notifications of every video that I upload. So definitely follow along if you want to see more videos, and I also am on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. I'll link all that below so you can check that out as well. I upload really regularly to my social media, so if you want to kind of follow along on updates, definitely check those out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you in the next video.